All right, we're ninth grade lit. We're finishing the song of Roland today as well as reviewing. So we are almost at the end of the questions too. So we've done 85. So we have 5 more. So would you mind getting that door?
Yeah. Do you have somebody like swept while we were at lunch? Because I had a paper on my bag and it's not there.
I didn't notice anybody sweeping.
Or like I don't know if they like thought it was trash or something.
Yeah. So you're gonna look for your review. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, the thing
All right.
today. Because I finished it up in form and I put it on my bag.
All right.
And I went out to lunch.
All right, so let me get started. We're going to read, so you have time to look for that. Number 280. All right, so these two are getting ready to fight. There's a ritual that's where they're going to go through, and that's in 86. So we've done 85. This will be 86 and 87. So when for the combat they are prepared and died, they made confession, are absolved and signed. And so hear Mass and eat the bread of Christ. And so the churches vow offerings of great price. Then they return to Carlin side by side. Upon their heels their spurs are buckled tight. They've donned their hauberks subtle and strong and white. Laced to their heads their glittering helmets bright. Girt on their swords with pure gold hilts made fine. About their necks their quartered scutcheons shine. In their right hand the pointed spears they gripe. Then up they mount upon their coursers light. Men weep to see them, full 100,000 knights, who grieve for Roland and pity Thierry's plight. God knows, only knows, which way will end the fight. And notice the location is literally right outside the castle walls. Beneath Aigue's walls an ample plain extends. Here face to face the combatants are set. Both are right noble, in valor they excel. Spirited steeds they have that run full well. They spur them hard, loose rein upon their neck. Right gallantly they ride to strike, they've met. Mid-shield they strike, the bucklers break and bend. Their hauberks split, the saddle girths are rent. Twisting to earth go saddle bow and sell. They weep to see those 100,000 men. Do you see what I see? If you see it differently, let me know, because it looks to me, if you've ever seen one of these old movies of jousting, you know what jousting is? You have 2 knights on horses and they come at each other with the long lances. Are you tracking with me here? And they try to unhorse the other guy. Well, what happens, I think they both get unhorsed. They knock each other off. The next one it says, down to the ground they've fallen, both the fighters. But to their feet at once they leap up lightly. Pinabel strong and very swift, up and sprightly. Their steeds are gone, each runs to meet his rival. Now with their swords, whose hilts are gilded brightly, on the steel helmets they're buffeted and striking. Heavy their strokes, great fragments are sent flying. The French well nigh go crazy with excitement. Ah, God, cries Carlin, declare thou where the right is. I don't know, I don't know if you can picture this action. If you can, that's a good sign. If your mind is so, can understand what's going on. I see them down on the ground. I love the line that says, once they're on the ground, they get their swords and they run at each other. I don't know if you've seen 2 fighters in a boxing match, when the bell rings, they literally advance toward each other. Usually they start dancing. If you've ever seen a boxing match, they don't go right at each. It's not wrestling, They stay at arm length. But I love to see, I don't watch boxing, but I've seen it before. 2 fighters, when they literally go right in, they start pounding each other. That, to me, that's what I see here. These 2 guys, they're not running away. They're coming at each other. Now they start talking to each other a little bit. This battle is going to remind you of Charlemagne and Balagan. Remember, they were fighting and said, you need to give up. And they said, no way, you need to give up. Remember how that went? It's exactly what happens here. So this mirrors, if I'm ever asked that question, this fight mirrors the other fight. Quoth Pinabel, Theory, I charge thee, yield. By love and faith thy vassal I will be. Whatever thou wilt I'll give of gold and fee. Only twixt Carlin and Ganelon make peace. There replies, this needs no reply or thought from me. Right base were I the least thing to concede. May God do justice this day twixt me and thee. So Pinabel starts in saying, you need to let Ganelon go. He goes right to him. And then it switches. Thierry says, Pinabel, thou art brave, sturdy and strong, limbs are nobly framed. Thy peers know well thy valor is unstained. I do beseech thee, quit now and yield the day. Gladly I'll make thy peace with Charlemagne. To Ganelon such justice shall be weighed till the time end the world shall tell the tale. Pinabel answers, God forbid it. I say, I will uphold the honor of my race. There's no man living shall ever see me quail. I'd rather die than be put to shame. Then with their swords they start to strike again, upon their helms with gold and jewels gay. Sky high the sparks fly in a fiery spray. They'll not be parted, their fury none can stay. Till one lies dead, nothing can end the fray. All right, I really need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 of you to read. So we can start with Freddie.
What number?
285.
Alright. Wait, you said the fight between Hannibal and the other guy is mirroring what's other fight?
Pinabel and Thierry, it mirrors the fight between Charlemagne and Balagan.
Alright. Okay. Hannibal strong, the valiant Soren's knight, on Thierry's helm of Provence steel he smites. The flash leaps out and sets the grass afire. Then with the point at Thierry's face he drives, and on the forehead delivers such a swipe that from his face the blade carves off a slice. Leaving his cheek all bloodied on the right, the halberd streaming, both back and breast alike. But for God's help the stroke had cost his life.
I just thought that was an interesting. Have you ever thought, when we were reading this, the whole book, is that all this steel hitting steel, what's it naturally going to do?
Break.
Well, it doesn't break, but what will it do?
Don't spark.
It's going to spark. And, you would imagine that that could possibly lead to, depending on where they were fighting, which is what happens here. The striking of the blades is so strong that the grass starts to catch on fire. Interesting. Fiona, would you read the next one?
When Thierry feels the blade bite through his flesh and sees the blood upon the grass run red, then he lets drive a blow at Pinabel down to the nasal. He cleaves the bright steel helm, shears through the brain his bills fit from his head, wrenches the blade out and shakes him from it dead. With the great stroke he wins and makes an end. The Franks all cry, God's might is manifest. Justice demands the rope for Gan's neck, and for his kinsmen who sets their lives in the throat.
And I failed to mention that in 285, Pinabel strikes Thierry and should have killed him. It says that it slices part of his face and his cheek is all bloodied, and it said, but for God's help, that stroke had cost his life. So make a note of that. Here it is, God intervening again and determining, this should have killed him, but it doesn't. And then the situation's reversed. Thierry strikes at Pinabel, and he does kill him. And the Franks cry, God's might is manifest. Justice demands the rope for Gan's head. So the trial is over. Once Pinabel is dead, that they figure that's God's way of saying Ganelon is guilty, and they'll have to kill him. So why don't we go to Hayden?
Now Thierry's battle triumphantly ascended. Straight to his side comes Charlemagne the Emperor. 4 of his barons are with him in attendance. The good Duke Naaman, the Lord Ogier of Denmark, William of Valais, and
Geoffrey.
In his 2 arms the king embraces Thierry, which his rich sables his countenance he cleanses. Then lays these by, and in others they dress him. Next they disarm the champion very gently,
following that? The only other thing that needs to happen is they need to get rid of Ganelon somehow.
Pinnable's dead already.
Pinnable is dead, which was God's way of saying that Ganelon was guilty and Charlemagne was right to accuse him of treason. All right. Give Dave a chance to finish. All right, 288.
Harlon now summons all his counts and his dukes. How do you read me these hostages to use? They came to second Ganelon in this suit, and pledged themselves for Pinabel to boot. The Franks reply, spare none, death is their due. Then the king orders an officer, Basbrud, go, hang them all upon the tree of doom. By this my beard, that silver is of hue. If one escapes, there is death and dole for you. The man replies, and what else should I do? 100 sergeants hail away at the whole crew. Each of the 30 is hanged up in a noose. Treason destroys itself and others too.
All right, so we can answer 87 and 8. Let's go back to 86 in a minute. Let's start at 88. This is your opinion, but why did they hang the hostages? They had pledged loyalty to Pinabel, which was the same thing as pledging loyalty to Ganelon. So why did they hang?
Well, would it be because since they're pledging for, Ganelon, who was the traitor, maybe they had some part of it? Or maybe they had the same instinct to Ganelon, like a traitor, I guess?
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they could trust them. If they supported this traitor, they were dangerous. If you let them go, they may do it again. They may support another traitor. So that's the reason they hang all 30 of them. Well, this is the Grizzly chapter. Who wants to read the Grizzly chapter? All right, Brian's going to read it. 289. It's a chapter. Remember, it's a lessay or a stanza. So you may begin.
Now the Bavarians, the men of Germany and Brittany, Pitu and Normandy, but first the French, and then are there agreed. Ganelon's death by torture is decreed. So to this end they order up 4 steeds, and bind him to them by the hands and the feet. High melted stallions they are, mettled stallions that are exceeding fleet. 4 sergeants take them and urge them at full speed towards a mare running loose in a field. Ganelon's torment is fearful and extreme, for all his sinews are racked from head to heel. His very limb wrenched from the sockets clean, his blood runs bright upon the grassy green. Ganelon's dead, so perish all his breed. To a wrong that treason should live to boast the deed.
I don't think I've asked you this question, but you notice how they kill him. All right, yes.
Don't they tie each of his limbs to a horse and have all the horses running in
That's
different
right.
directions?
So it's pretty gruesome, and again, I have a problem with this. We talked about that. Our Constitution prevents this. We couldn't do something like that officially, and but it's just medieval justice. Be a great question. What does medieval justice look like? We could even include that on the exam because you see a lot of that in Beowulf.
I bet this sounded awful too.
What?
I bet this sounded awful too.
What do you mean?
This is his tendons just going.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty vivid when you said, yeah.
And obviously he's screaming.
Right, yeah. I
The
just,
whole time.
yeah,
His bone was just.
exactly. Awful.
Sorry.
Wait, so.
Would you like to repeat that? No. All right, Natalie, and, yeah.
So like medieval justice is like torture, basically?
Yeah, yeah, the way they've treated him up to this point, he certainly deserves punishment, but, we would say they're overdoing it. I would.
The emperor's debt of vengeance is now paid. Next, the French bishops he summoned to his aid. Bavarian bishops and bishops of Alamein lodged captive here. I have a notable day. Sermon and story on her heart have prevailed. God to believe in Christendom to take. Therefore baptize her, and that her soul may be saved. Provide her then with godmothers, they say. Nobly born ladies instructed in
So I like the fact that the author didn't forget about Bramamond, some of that detail, and so what did they do for Bramamond? Yes, so. They do, and of course they baptize her, which in the church in those days, that was essentially the same thing. Again, if you're Protestant, that's not what baptism means. It's just a sign of salvation. But in the early church, it was more than that. It was part of the salvation process. So, and what else do they do for her? Or I hardly think for her, but yeah, for her. What do they do?
Is it like when they, like the burying of the men?
Like what?
Like when they bury, Marcelian and them?
What's like
Well,
that?
is Grandma married to Marcelian?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what they did with him. He died, yes. Her name has been changed. And what is it now? And you notice it says they've chosen for her a name. They didn't ask her, what would you like your new name to be? Yes.
Sorry, you asked what happened to King Marsil? He died of grief.
Yes. I just don't know what they did with the body, if they buried him. I don't think, of course, the Christian writer wouldn't care too much about that. Yeah.
So Charlemagne's the one that, baptized her?
Probably, yeah. Any volunteers, somebody hadn't read yet, who would like to finish this for us? We got one chapter, one essay, somebody who hasn't read yet. We got these 2 rows of read, anybody in these 2 rows? All right, Matthew, you can finish it for us.
291.
Yeah,
The emperor now has ended his aside. With justice done, his great wrath satisfied. And Brahmamanda brought to the fold of Christ, the day departs and evening turns to night. The king of bed in vaulted chamber high, Saint Gabriel comes, God's courier to his side. Up, Charles, assemble thy whole imperial might, with force and arms into Elvira ride. Needs must this accord King Vivian, where he lies, at his city beside, besieged by Paynim tribes. Therefore thy help the Christians call and cry, small heart in Carlin's journey and to fight. God, says the king, how weary is my life. He weeps, he plucks his falling beard and white. Here ends the jest, Herodotus would recite.
oddest ending I could possibly imagine. The story is over. The emperor, can you imagine this? I mean, you probably feel this way having read it, but can you imagine, stretching, finally, after all 7 years, I'm gonna sleep in my own bed tonight. All my enemies are dead. We won the war. Life is good. So before he can get in bed, who shows up? Who shows up? You can't even get in bed. You certainly can't get to sleep. And I don't even know if he's in his bedroom, but that's how I picture it anyway. So, yeah, Gabriel says, not so fast, my friend. You need to get your army together, and you need to ride to Elvira and give King Vivian help, because his city's being besieged by Paynims. Before you can even, relax 1 minute, and how does he respond? This is answer to number 90. What is his response? The last we see of this great king, this Emperor Charlemagne, this great warrior, what's he doing?
He was mentally destroyed, actually.
He is.
Pulling out his hair.
Pulling his beard and weeping. Oh gosh, I gotta go do this again. That is not, I just think that's the oddest ending. You think he'd be standing on the mountain, with the flag behind him in the sunset, or riding off in the sunset, not crying like a baby. And it doesn't say he's on his knees, but that's how I picture it too. It's funny how you add things that aren't there.
Might have been like a weird form of comedy.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see
To
much
lighten-
comedy in epic literature.
To lighten the mood of
Yeah.
the man being ripped into a bunch of pieces.
Yeah, the last scene was that, and now you have the king weeping like a baby. I just think it's odd. If I asked you that question, and I don't think it's just me, what's odd about the way the book ends, I think you get the idea. One last question that's not on the list. Who is this Herodotus guy? He's not the writer of Beowulf, yeah,
He is the jongler that would sing the
exactly.
song of Roland.
He's one of the jongleurs, the guys, because it says he recited it, didn't say he composed it. So,
Who is this?
this is Taroldus. Look at 89, the Word Guild is the man price. Obviously, that has to do with Ganelon paid for being a part of killing Roland. So there's the man price. Your guy, my guy for your guy. I mean, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, sort of thing. All right, so we did 88, we did 87. 87. Why would the king and the barons allow Ganelon's fate to be decided by a duel?
Oh,
I think God has control over who would win the fight, so it's
Yeah.
a way of just getting God's answer.
Are you aware of the way they would draw lots in the Bible? You know, to determine something, they would just get long straw or short straw. You ever played a game that way? You know, say who's got the long straw or whatever. You just kind of arbitrarily pick who's going to go first. Flip a coin. You know, who that determines is pure luck, right? Well, they don't see it that way. They see that God was working in the combat, so He was really choosing. And I'll answer this for you. 86, the elements of ceremony and ritual. I can think of two things. First, they're hostages. You have to have somebody to second the dueler. So Charlemagne seconded his guy, Thierry, and the 30 hostages seconded Pinabel. And by that, they would have replaced the guy that's involved in the duel if they had to. And it was like they would replace him. They would have fought for him. And they hand the glove. So each person hands a glove to Charlemagne. So those are two elements. And finally, what does it appear, according to the book, Charlemagne's role in the kingdom of God is? Yeah.
could you say that like Charlemagne, it kind of looked like that he was really like respected by God. He was like kind of
Respected?
yeah. Cause
Okay. But what is his role? What does he actually do? What's his function? Hey,
I think like maybe like to help others, like that are getting attacked by pain.
I see him a lot like David. You know, David couldn't build the temple because he was a man of war. God used David to defeat the enemies, a physical warrior. And that's Charlemagne's role. He's a physical warrior, not so much a spiritual one, but he was kind of that role in the kingdom. He would go out and defend other Christians from enemies. Yeah.
Did you say it was 89 was? Or 89 was?
89.
Ganelon was killed and
Yeah.
paid the price.
Say it.
Ganelon was killed and paid the price, like the man.
For Roland. Ganelon's life for Roland's life. Now, I think all but about a handful of you, 3 or 4 of you, if that many, were, finished. I think my suggestion is with the remaining 20 minutes, not all of it, don't have to do any of it, but are there questions on that review sheet? You need to get that out, and we can't answer every question, and we've got to spread the questions around, but we need to look at that and find the ones that you tried, you couldn't find them. Make sure, and then tomorrow, remember, tonight you're gonna work on, if we had time, the other review sheet, the questions, and we'll split up and go through that, yeah.
What's the Sizer Gate?
The Sizer Gate is the beginning of the pass that runs through the Pyrenees. The pass is this valley that runs between the two mountains. And Roland is guarding the rear of the pass, and the beginning of the pass is called the Sizer Gate. There's really no gate there, it's just a figurative term. There's no literal gate that you open and close. All right, yeah.
Who is Walter Hum?
Okay, any of you wanna answer that? That's the kind of question I'd have. How about it, Dave?
He was among the soldiers that remained after much of the French army was killed.
He was one of the three.
Yeah, one of the last.
But you also said that he was a count and he was appointed to the rear guard.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he's one of the, I can't guarantee, if you said he was one of the 12 peers, I'd give you credit, because seems to me he was mentioned in that group at least once. It's not that important, but the most important thing is he was one of the last three.
I'll say a lot.
One of you, how about,
Can I just still run out and go see if I can find it again?
you think it's outside?
That's where I know I had it, but I.
Alright, alright. Yes, I just don't want you to miss anything, for that, yeah.
Wait, we do like the fact, and we'll need to know like the fact or fiction, right?
The fact versus the fiction. Alright, so let's just talk about three each. There are more, but can anyone give me one fact that is definitely different from the book? Yeah, Zoe. Very good. That's one exaggeration that the book, adds a couple hundred years to his age. Can anybody think of another fact that differs from the book? One of the ones I mentioned is, what is the factual reason that Charlemagne invaded Spain? Why did he go? We know this historically, we can verify it. Why did he go into Spain and attack the Saracens?
Was it because of those two men that were killed?
No, that's the book. That didn't really happen.
Alright.
Nobody knows that one? All right, so the reason he goes in reality, in fact, is because he was invited there by other Saracens. Rather than going in to destroy all the Saracens, to conquer Spain completely, that's not why, in fact, Charlemagne went into Spain. He was invited to help one group of Saracens fight another group of Saracens. And if you remember the little video we watched, he just fought in like 2 or 3 cities. He didn't cover the whole country like he does in the book. So that's a second fact that's different from the book.
How much should we know?
What?
How much should we know?
How much what should we?
How many facts?
Well, I said we'd do 3 to start with, so we need a third. And it's on the sheet. I mentioned what's another area that I listed here. It's somewhere. I don't see it. All right, so let me just give you one. The representation of Islam is different in the book than the facts. The facts are that Islam, and there could be 2 or 3 answers to this. Islam is monotheistic. They believe in one God. According to the book, and the medieval period, Islam or Muslims worshipped 3 gods or multiple gods. They were heathen. And you need to know the names of those 3 gods. That would be one major difference in the 2. Remember, another difference would be the book always, I'll check it.
Thank you.
The book would show Muslims as being cowardly and sneaky, which that's a stereotype. No group can be classified as all being the same way. So that's kind of an unfair comparison. That's a stereotype. So those are 2. Did you have another one?
I have a question.
Okay. Well, let me see what you got.
I just have a really quick question. Who was Nathan again?
And he's the, wasn't he the one I heard here?
Nathan?
Nathan.
Oh,
I'm
he was
sorry.
the-
It's the mask.
Yeah,
It's the
He
mask.
was the like loyal advisor.
Yeah, he's probably the number one, seems to be in the book, the number one advisor to Charlemagne. He's the one that says, let's take Ganelon's deal. He's the one that says to Charlemagne, Ganelon is a traitor. So he plays a couple important roles in the book, yeah.
Wait, who are those 3 gods that
The 3 gods, anybody wanna rattle that off? That's something I'll ask tomorrow also in the contest. Ryan?
Tell me again, Apollyon and Mahmoud.
The last one was Mahoon, which is Mohammed.
what was the second one?
Apollyon.
Apollyon, which was probably from who?
Napoleon.
Apollo, but it's also in the Bible. It's in the New Testament. Apollyon is mentioned as a name for the devil, and of course, termagant don't know its origins. Extra credit, what is the modern or use of the word termagant? What does it mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
like a
A
weed.
nagging woman.
A nagging woman is a
According to
termagant.
the definition.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, with the last one, could we just say Muhammad?
Well, they call him Mahum. They don't call him Muhammad, so they do change it some. You had a question, right?
Yeah, do we have to know, like, page numbers for the examples of literary
No,
terms?
no, you do not.
Okay. Great to know for all of them.
What?
Like, literary terms part seems a lot, can you explain, like, how that'll work?
Sure. Fiona, what was your question? I want to ignore it.
What does termagant mean again?
Well, it means a nagging woman, but it also was a name that developed out of the Middle Ages as a god that they worshiped. Now, her question was, what about the literary terms? I don't think did I list them? Yeah, I listed them. You, as usual, you need to be able to define and give an example. Now, in the past, which we've only had one test, you could do one or the other. And for time's sake, that's why I did that. But my preference will be, and so I want you to study it because I may ask you to give both. Sometimes it's good to give both because I don't understand your definition. So if you give an example, okay, I see what they mean. So the example is always helpful. Do we need to go over those? Do we need to go over them? Okay, they'll come up again tomorrow when we review. Now, we only have 3 people asking questions. Anybody else have questions? They may be doing you a favor, and I'm happy to answer them. I just don't want to leave anybody out. Natalie?
What's the melee for melee?
A melee. We would put that under the strategies or warfare style. It's the confused massed fighting of 2 armies. You know, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just you're swinging, you're fighting in this confused conglomeration of troops. It's not one-on-one like Pinabel and Theory run at each other with Charlemagne and Marsilian, just one-on-one. That's not a melee. The melee is when it might be 5 people against 1 or something like that. Yeah.
Like, what does like Babylon have to do with,
Bramamon?
Babylon?
Babylon. That's where Marsilian is supposed to be. Balagan is supposed to be from Babylon. And we won't go into it, but Babylon is an important biblical place. But we don't need to go into that.
So should we do that for tomorrow too?
If it's on the sheet, we need to know what it is.
Alright.
If it's not on the sheet, we don't need to know. All right, okay.
Wait, can you give the formation of the legend?
Yeah, the way to answer that is between 778, which you need to know, and the 900s, which could be like 100 plus years, the legend formed. And then what was the legend? What happened? Well, what you get is a distortion of the facts, the age, the reasons, the presentation of Islam. All those things have been distorted so that now you don't have a factual story anymore. You have a made-up story. It's still worth reading because it tells us a lot about the Middle Ages, but the facts are not all correct. Yeah.
What happened at the Elbra River? Was that?
Couple of things. Yeah, so
Didn't like the French, they were like chasing the Saracens and they all drowned.
Okay,
that's right. The other thing you could say is that Balagan's fleet sailed up the Ebro River. I don't have a map. I don't think I've even seen it on a map, but they sailed up the Ebro River to get to Saragossa. And so they're right outside Saragossa. Yeah, Dave.
So is that the river where the entire Paynim army drowned?
That's right. So,
Charlemagne's like dreams, like what they were.
yeah, there are 4 dreams. They're in two pairs. The first two dreams, remember, have to do with battle against rebellion, and the second dream was about the battle with Balagan. The second dream was, and I always kind of forget, I'm gonna have to look at it. I get them mixed up myself. But the second dream is the one, I believe, about the bears and the greyhound. Isn't that it? I just gotta find it. And that's about the battle with Marsilian, rather.
And the first one was the first dreams about the battle against Balagan.
Well, then you have another set of dreams. I'm sorry, I'm not finding it real fast. I just don't wanna lead you astray there. But the second set have to do with Marsilian and Balagan and the trial of Ganelon. So there are really three events that are portrayed through these four dreams. The first battle, the second battle, and the trial.
Okay, so it was like the battle where after Roland's dead and everything, the dreams about fighting Balagan, and then they have one about Ganelon's trial, and what was the third one?
The first one is about
okay,
Marsilian and Ganelon's treason.
Okay.
And then the second two are about the battle with Balagan.
Also, what's parataxis?
Doesn't it, have those
Sam, you got it?
clauses together without a judge?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, an example was 2 horse, 2 arms, 2 clauses, or 2 phrases, and I can't recall the other one right off the top of my head. But that's the example. Yeah, just going back to those dreams, the first dream foreshadowed Ganelon's betrayal, and the second dream, the battle with Marsilian. So I think we got those. Natalie?
What happened at Cordoba?
That's where Charlemagne's army is camped in the opening scene of the book. Yeah. Hey,
Who was out?
Ood, A-U-D-E.
Yeah.
Anybody want to tell us? Freddie?
Roland's wife and Oliver's sister, and she dies of grief after the death
Yeah,
of
but
Roland.
not his wife, his fiance.
Fiance.
Okay.
Yeah, Abby.
Who are the Pyrenees?
The mountains that separate the two countries, and the pass runs through the mountains.
And
That's what-
Roncevaux is the place like in front of the pass?
Yeah, it's a valley right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you ever say like, for the Larry terms, do we need to know both examples and the definition?
Yeah, I mean, you need to know them. I may have mercy and not make you give me both, but I think if you give me a definition, I think giving an example is smart, because the definition may not make sense to me, but if you give an example, okay, I see what they're saying. So the more information you give, that's usually helpful. Sometimes it's not, but you do have the time element. You don't want to spend too much time on it, but Fiona.
What's like the symbolism of the wand?
The wand. Yeah, we wouldn't call it a wand, we'd call it a scepter. A wand makes it sound like a witch or wizard. But the scepter represents the king's power. It's essentially what Xerxes, whatever his name was, he was Xerxes, gave to Esther. When Esther interrupted him, and this was his authority. And the glove represents the same thing. So the glove and the wand basically are interchangeable. Yeah.
Would you describe like the 12 pairs as like warriors or something?
The best. I heard somebody say it. The flower of French chivalry. You could compare them to the Knights of the Round Table in British legend. That's who these guys are.
So they're the best warriors?
Yeah. Fiona.
And, who are Bastile and Jason?
Oh,
Alright.
those are the two guys that, tried to go over to, Marcellian, and then, but aren't they the ones that got their heads chopped off or something? They were
Right,
killed?
there were envoys. Envoys are sacred, you cannot touch them, but that's how the Muslims are portrayed as people that would kill defenseless ambassadors or envoys. Hey,
I have like two questions. How old was Charlemagne in the actual story? Like this story?
Two on him.
Zoe, in the actual, in reality was Zoe, you had a minute ago.
No, it says in the book.
Okay, how was he there? Yeah,
Wasn't in the battle, he was 38.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then, on the review, there was like, two different things, like one, like listed the characters, and then the other was like, on a different portion, like, describe the characters. You just want us to know, like, stuff about the characters? Alright.
Yeah, there'll be a section,
Like the first-
probably that section, like in the previous test, they'll match, or, you know, you have to come up with a name to match. So, that would be something to expect, yeah.
I don't know if this has been asked yet, but was Saragossa the last city that had to be conquered?
Yes,
Or,
it was, in the book.
I mean, was it the last painted city remaining that Charlemagne?
It was Saragossa.
Okay.
And it starts at Saragossa, and the whole thing ends in Saragossa, when he finally, 100 so pages later, he finally takes it. Well, we don't have much time, we got 5 minutes. If you wanna look at that other sheet and just, you know, it's really a repeat of this sheet. It's basic, you know, 1 or 2 word answers, maybe a few explanations. So we'll do that tomorrow, you know, I'll divide you into 2 groups, and we'll kind of do it as a game and see if you, without notes, see if you can answer the questions. You have the questions, but I don't want you to use them tomorrow, and to see if you actually know it. And then on Thursday, we'll take this test. Well, I'm gonna shut this off, but if you still have any questions, you're welcome to ask, and I'll check yours. So, let me